So here's the question. As a real estate investor, how do you build a business that you're excited to show up to every day while you constantly grow your stream of passive income that you and your family can depend on for life without having to leave your computer or even live somewhere that houses are affordable? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. Welcome to the Virtual Real Estate Investing Podcast with your host, Brian Elwood.
What's up, guys? Brian Elwood here. Welcome back to the Virtual Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the second time ever that I'm doing a video along with the audio. So these videos will also be on YouTube, and we're going to put them on Facebook and everything else so I can grow a YouTube channel where people can listen to the podcast as well. So I hope you guys like it. Definitely give me any feedback that you've got. So what I want to talk about on today's episode is private money lenders, because private money lenders are actually my favorite strategy for growing my rental portfolio. I've had a lot more luck dealing with individuals that have money versus dealing with banks. Banks have always traditionally been pretty difficult to deal with when it comes to getting private money for rentals. So a lot of people, they like the idea of, sure, some rich dude loaning them money so they could buy rental properties, but that's about as far as they think about it. And they have no idea how they would ever approach somebody and ask them for money. They don't even know what's in it for the lender, if it's a good deal for them, and how to pitch this type of arrangement. So I'm just going to pitch, what I offer for private money lenders on this episode unashamedly. So if you're a private money lender and you want to work with me, this episode is actually for you too. But mainly, it's for my listeners. I want you guys to hear how I would talk about what it is that I have to offer to a private money lender. So once you hear this pitch, you can basically just copy it or tweak it to fit whatever it is you're trying to do, and then go out and start asking for money so you can grow your portfolio. So here goes. So I am looking for private money to purchase rental properties. I have several dozen rental properties mostly in Tennessee, some in Alabama. Most of them are in Nashville, Tennessee, or some of the surrounding cities. The purchase prices of these houses are usually around $50,000, give or take, and the renovations usually run anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 on each property. The rents, once they are fixed up, are usually anywhere from $800 to $1,000. What I would like from you, Mr. Lender, is to loan me the purchase price of the house. I only want you to loan up to maybe 70% of the actual value. So before we would do business, I'd send you comparables. You could locate a realtor or whoever, if you are look at tax appraised values, do some of your own due diligence to get a rough idea of what the house is worth. Let's say it's worth $70,000. I would only ask that you loan me maybe up to about $45,000 on the house. And if you loan me the $45,000, not only will I pay you somewhere in the 6 to 8% range in interest on the loan, but you will also have a lien against that particular property. I'll pay the title company to draw up the paperwork showing that you loaned me X dollars at X percent for X term, basically whatever we agree upon, on this one property, 123 Main Street, or whatever the address is. And that document is called a deed of trust. It gets recorded at the actual county courthouse of whatever county the property is in as a real lien against the house. It's no different than the liens that Wells Fargo or, Bank of America would create if they were to loan you money for a mortgage on a house. They have a lien against the house. You have to pay them the monthly payment. If you don't, they can foreclose and take the house back. The same goes for you as a lender. If you do not get your payment, let's say 3 months goes by, no payment comes in, you have the legal right to foreclose on that house that we've determined is worth $70,000 and take it back. And so if your loan amount was for $45,000, then you're well covered. In fact, one of my mentors, in this space likes to say that when this kind of arrangement, is structured correctly, the worst thing that can happen to the lender is that I pay them on time. The worst thing that can happen is that I keep my word and I send them their monthly checks and I pay them back their principal on time. Because if I don't do that, then they end up inheriting an asset that's worth well over what they actually loaned against it. Like, just as an example, if I have a car that's worth $20,000 and I tell you to loan me $10,000, and if I don't pay you back, you can have the car, then you almost don't want me to pay you back so you can get a $20,000 car for $10,000. Cars are not a great example because they depreciate and people can hide them and stuff like that. But houses are different, right? That's one reason why houses are so safe to loan against, is not only do they appreciate in value and not only do they have insurance, but they're stationary, right? You can't hide it or lose it or anything like that. You know where it is and you can see it at all times with your own eyes. It's a real asset with real value. So it's not some, wishy-washy loan that I'm asking for where I'm just saying, hey, loan me $20,000, as a business loan. I need some marketing money or something. If that goes away, then, you're up shit creek as the lender. Your loan's not backed by anything. If you've ever watched American Greed, you see these guys that raise all this money in these Ponzi schemes and mail people fake statements, showing them how much money they're making. Blows my mind that people would ever do that, first of all. But those loans are not backed by anything. If the borrower loses the principal, then game over. But in this scenario, the loan is backed by a real piece of property. It's recorded. You can have your own attorney draw up the documents if you want, or at least look over and approve the documents that my title attorney draws up. Excuse me, water. So everything's done above board. We can even use a third-party company to process the monthly payments if you want, but I normally just have my bank send a check each month to you. So how does that sound to you, Mr. Lender? Is getting a fixed, 6 to 8% on your money sound like a good fit for you? How long would you want your money to be out? Do you want it back in 6 months or a year? Are you willing to go beyond a year? Me personally, I like the money for 1 to 5 years because it's longer than, I don't have to worry about it, and I can have a lot of time to work with banks to refinance and pay you back, which is another important point, Mr. Lender, is that's the primary way that I would pay you back. I would either pay you back with cash, or maybe I would refinance with a different private money lender who would take over your position on the lien and pay you off. But the most likely thing I'll do is go to a bank where I can get 4 or 5% interest and refinance with them at either a 5, 10, 15, or a 30-year note. And at the time of that refi, they, of course, have to pay you off before anything can happen because you are the lien holder on the property. I'd also put in the paperwork that I was not legally allowed to place any additional liens on the property. It's just a technical thing. Like, I could go out and get more money loaned against that same property, and that person would be the second position lien holder, or I could get a third or whatever if there was actually that much equity. So even if that happened, first position gets paid off in full before second and third get even a dime. But it's just messy, and I wouldn't do that anyways, but I like that to be written down in the paperwork that I'm not legally allowed to do that, just to keep it clean. Another thing that I didn't mention, Mr. Lender, is that I prefer usually to do interest-only loans. So if you loan me $50,000 at, we'll call it 10% just for a nice round number, I'd pay you $5,000 a year. That's the 10%. So that whatever that is divided by 12 would be my monthly payment to you. And then at the end of the year, I pay you back the full $50,000. So it'd be $55,000 even that you would end up with at the end of our agreement. Sometimes we can structure amortization schedules. That just basically means that some of my payment to you would go towards paying down the principal amount that you loan me. So like some of that 50 grand would get knocked off. Just like when you buy a house, right? Part of your payment goes to the principal, part goes to interest. But usually with these loans, it's better to just do 100% of the payment goes to interest. It's not as good for me, but it keeps it really clean. We know exactly where we are and exactly how much principal you are owed because the principal balance does not get paid down. And it's still a good deal for me to do these types of loans because I can grow my portfolio faster by borrowing money from you versus going through a 3 or 4 month process at the bank where I have to get them 1,000 pieces of paperwork and all of that. If I get a good deal that comes along or there's a bunch of equity in it, I need to be able to close on that in 2, 3, 4 weeks, or otherwise this seller might run and sell their house to somebody else. And so my true asset is that I buy houses right. I know how to buy them at a discount and find discounted properties. So I need speed and liquidity to take the properties down. I know how to renovate them. I know how to rent them out and calculate all the numbers and make sure I'm going to cash flow. And then over time, I can replace your loan with a bank loan at more favorable terms and get more cash flow. But really the way I buy these, even if we were to do a long-term loan, like a 30-year loan, which you'd probably never do, but this is just to prove a point. There'd still be some cash flow each month going into my pocket at the rates that I'm comfortable doing deals with. Like I said, 6-8%, somewhere around there is usually where I like to be with this type of arrangement. So if you're interested in working with me, Mr. Lender, Mrs. Lender, email me, brian@brianelwood.net. That's BRIAN at BRIANELLWOOD.net. And we will talk. All right, guys, that is basically me just off the cuff throwing my proposition out to a private money lender. Obviously, if I was sitting down at a table with somebody, there'd be a lot more back and forth dialogue. I'd do a lot more question asking than just blurting out everything because it's not a good sales technique to talk way too much. You're supposed to listen, find out what other people want, and make sure what you have is really a good fit for them. This is never something you would try to pressure somebody into. You want to act like you have the gold, not them, because really you do. If somebody's got $1 million sitting in an IRA or a savings account and you can pay them a guaranteed 8% and their money's legally backed by real assets that are worth a lot more than they loaned, then yes, there's always going to be some level of risk, but this is one of the least risky types of investments that someone can do. Like I'm even comfortable, pitching my own family members on this type of loan because I know that there's no way they're ever going to lose their principal. And I know that I can pay them that interest check each month. So I do truly feel like this is a great opportunity for the lender as well as us, as well as the investors. So don't feel like you're, out there trying to rip people off or because you're asking them for money. It's still going to always feel uncomfortable to ask someone for money. I don't know why, but it's just like the way we're wired. But you got to realize that this is a good opportunity for both parties. It really is a win-win scenario. Of course, you never get your lender in more than like 60 to 70% of the value of the house. So you do need to be able to buy properties at a discount. Maybe you need to bring the money to the table to do the rehab or whatever. As long as you keep them at a safe loan to value, then they're going to be fine. So that's it, guys. That's basically how I would, talk to somebody at a coffee shop about what I do. And through doing this regularly every week, and I think it's Tuesday or Wednesday morning, I sit down and pull up my private money lender list and I pick a name and I make a phone call and chat for 20, 30 minutes with a new person. And just doing this repeatedly has allowed me to build up a database of people that every time a good deal comes along, I usually have somebody waiting in the wings to fund it. And that allows me to grow my portfolio pretty much at will. It's really, really powerful strategy, especially if for any reason, like you're not currently bankable, like maybe you've been an entrepreneur and, you didn't have, enough tax return history or something. Banks have all these rules for whether or not they think someone's bankable. It's crazy. But using other people's money is truly a strategy to get wealthy quick. Robert Kiyosaki was not kidding when he talked about how OPM, or other people's money, is one of the best ways to become an investor and to get success rapidly. But of course, you always look out for your lender. You got to treat their money like it is your own. The day you burn one lender, it's over, right? You're not going to be getting more money anytime soon. Thank you guys so much for listening. Please leave me a review on iTunes. I only take a few minutes of your time. If you get value from this podcast and you want to give it back in any way, it would be awesome if you would just figure out how to go on iTunes and leave me a brief review. It would really help to get this podcast out because iTunes really promotes the podcasts that have reviews. So yeah, appreciate that, guys. And I will see you on the next episode. Peace.
Want more? Get your free copy of Brian's book that is changing real estate businesses everywhere. Just go to www.fireyourself.net. Also, register for your free virtual real estate investing online masterclass at virtualinvestingclass.com.